Oh. What do you reckon? Could you do with one of these? Well, this video is all about how I made this one. The Stemp back scratcher. Now this is the piece of timber that I've got. It's a piece of Huon pine. It measures 3 inches by 1 inches, 75, well this piece is about 70 mil by a bit over 25 mil. Now what I am going to do is, I don't really want to turn this all down into a handle. This is going to be the back scratching end down here. I don't want to put this on the lathe and turn that, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my centering ruler and I'm going to find the center and cut this down into a strip 1 inch by 1 inch. There we go. Now I'm going to take this over to a bandsaw. I'm going to cut this out. Now you'll see that these, I just sketched these lines in here because what I want to do is just run that out there like that. So I'm going to get onto the bandsaw and I'm going to cut down here and then run that out. Right, we've back from the bandsaw. There's my efforts on the bandsaw. I didn't quite get that. This cut here is a bit further down than that one, but we'll tidy that up on the lathe as we're turning that. So we'll do a cut down the hill here. Anyway, I've got my roughing gouge and off we go. Speed the lathe up. Clutch it. And you can see how I use this roughing gouge. That's the traditional way of using a roughing gouge. And that's certainly what I would do with a bigger section of timber. But on this you can almost use it like a skew chisel. So this cutting edge is being presented to the rotation of the wood, which is just like that, at approximately 45 degrees. So bevel rubbing, roll the tool towards the wood until it starts to cut, and there it is. Now we'll probably get some whipping, that is, this will start to flex as I get thinner here. Now that's not round here, so I'll get a few more cuts there. What I want to do is just a fairly simple shape here, nothing too decorative. I'm going to move my tool rest along. Now I'm going to turn the lathe off to do this because this is quite dangerous just here because I've got wood and then air, wood and then air, so I'll just move that there nice and safely. This is the sort of thing that could easily take a fingertip off if you're not careful, so be very careful when you're doing something like this. I'll lay it off and I'm going to go now onto a spindle gouge. This is a replaceable tip spindle gouge, my favourites. It doesn't have that flute all the way down here, but apart from that there's no difference. Now, flute, it's not pointing straight up, it's not pointing straight across that way, it is about 45. So the way you can check this quite easily is if you were to put a, I'm just grabbing a ruler here, just put a ruler across there like that. That ruler shouldn't be parallel with your floor, it shouldn't be parallel with your walls, like that. It should be about 45 degrees away from the wood. So it's something like that. Just run down the hill. I'm not working up the hill, I'm running down the hill. So just do that, not too many times. Let's have a look at how that looks. Now you can see that's cut nice and cleanly along there, nice and evenly there. Very little chipping now. That, because we're cutting this way, theoretically there's chipping along this edge, not that edge there, but there should be a little, and there is just a little bit of chipping out just there, because that grain there is not being supported by anything else. But I'm happy with that. I can get on with finishing this section here now. I'm using the spindle gouge similar to the way I was using the roughing gouge earlier on, just to get this tidied up. Let's just keep that groove there. I'll just come down here again. Let's just keep that there, and we can make another one just there, and we can start getting thinner just here. Now I'm working up a hill there, so really should be working down. You'll get a smoother cut working down the hill. But I'm just sort of establishing things. Now I'm going to come down the hill with the spindle gouge. You can hear that rattling. That's the wood starting to flex. Now see the diameter of this here, how it's smaller than the diameter of that. I'd like it to look as though this shaft runs through that bead and then out the other side. So I just might make that a little bit thinner here. Come down the hill and just see how that looks. That's a bit better. That's not looking too bad. Now I'm going to grab a skew chisel and I'm going to tidy this up. I'm going to use a skew chisel because I can use a skew chisel and get my fingers behind the lathe like that, or behind the wood I should say. And I'm going to support the wood. I'm going to put some pressure that way which opposes the force of the skew chisel the other way. And that was going to help stop a bit of the whipping. So you can see the thumb, my thumb here is supporting the front of the skew. Just take small cuts. I can start back here now. I shouldn't get any whipping back here. I'm going to make that the end there. I don't want to have to deal with the mark that the live centre is made in the end of the wood. So that can be the end of my back scratcher. Bit of a decoration there. So I'll just cut a bead in there. All of these cuts that I'm doing with this skew chisel have been described in a couple of videos that I did about the skew chisel and how to use it. The skew made easy. Here's another way of doing exactly the same thing. These fingers are over the top of the wood now and supporting the wood, providing opposing pressure. And if you're finding this difficult, there's always coarse sandpaper to use. But you don't have to get really thin here. It's not an exercise in getting something, a piece of wood really thin, and it'll just weaken your wood anyway, so I'm going to keep it like that. Let's have a look at how that's looking. A little bit of a bulge just here. This is where it's chattering the worst. And you can see the chatter pattern happening out over here, but that will sand out nice and easily, I'm sure, because this is a soft wood. I notice that there's a bit of a flat over here. Coming around this over. Get rid of a lot of this wood, because I would like to get this as round as possible. And then I'm just going to tidy that up and cut that a little bit smaller now. I'm going to run my fingers down there and feel what that tape is like. It's really good up to just here. That's where I'm getting the worst of the chatter. So I'll just have to sand that out. Now this is dangerous sanding here, but I can put my finger like that, running with the direction. If as soon as I do that against the direction, I'm asking for trouble. So onto the sanding now. But when I come to sand up here, I need the lathe going fairly fast, so that the lathe or the sandpaper skips over the airy bit and doesn't round over the edges too much. So let's have a look at this. What I'm saying is, if you go too slow, you'll be rounding over
You can see how this is a lot more rounded over than this, and this edge here, the leading edge, is a lot more rounded over than that one there. So that's part of the issue of this sort of work. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with that. When I next see you, this will be all sanded up and ready for the next stage. Right, all the lathe work has been finished now. I've still got the little nub on the end of the back scratcher here, which is a flat there, which I'm going to use as a flat for clamping. I've taken this over to a drop saw and I've cleaned up that edge there, so it's been cut square and flat and clean. And then this piece of wood, this piece of bullock, so this is a hardish timber, is going to be glued onto there like so. Now the grain of the bullock, as you can quite see by the figuring there, it's going that way. So that's going to go on like so. Just PVA glue, this is tight bond. Because we're going into end grain, I'm going to put a fair bit onto there because the end grain will soak it up. I'll use my finger to spread that out. It doesn't matter if we get a lot of glue squeeze out. I've got to find out where I'm going to put that on my boot. I might wipe the rest of that. It's a good sealer for my boot. Now this is being cut oversized both ways, so it shouldn't matter too much if it moves a little bit as it's being clamped. Now this is a bit awkward. More like that. That's better. Oh, something cracked. There we go. I'll just leave that glue to dry and we'll be back and we'll need to shape this.
Now I want to do a bit of shaping to this end section of my back scratcher. Now before I do, this shaping will be done on the Linish or belt sander, but before I do that I'll just cut away a bit of this excess so you can see the lines that I'm going to cut. So one in here, another one there, and then I'm just going to cut this bull oak to length just there.
Right, so I'm just doing some finishing off sanding by hand of the areas that I used, or the areas that I sanded on the linisher. So that's some 320 grit. Now what I needed to mention is why I put this extra piece of wood up here. Now you notice when I originally glued this up, I did talk about the grain direction of this piece of wood. It is a hardwood. This timber here is a lot softer, that's the Huon pine. I did do some trials earlier on with my first efforts of these back scratchers, and I found that the best way to make this edge here nice and hard and scratchable is to do exactly what I've done. I originally cut some fingers along the Huon pine and that just wasn't working. This hard piece of timber, no teeth on there, just well, it's not a sharp edge, but it's reasonably sharp, and it's curved like so. I'm sure you can see that curve on there. These curves here done on the drum of the belt sander, so that curve there looks or feels good on your back. It's a nice shape, and there's just enough abrasion there to make for a very good back scratching experience. So, a bit of hand sanding to finish off. I've got my Japanese saw and I'm going to use that to just cut off the nub on the back there. And I'm hoping this oil doesn't fall off the table while I'm doing this. love these Japanese saws. They are, or the teeth are raked towards the operator, so the cutting stroke is the pulling stroke rather than the pushing stroke. Cut that off, and I can do some hand sanding to finish that off as well. And this is my new favourite finish, especially for objects like this, the Aussie Oil by U-Butte Polishers. So I'm going to apply some of this Aussie oil onto my back scratcher. It is a great finish for smaller turned objects and small boxes, for instance, or whatever else. It's not good for big objects, big surfaces, but fantastic for smaller objects. The finish is just so easy to apply, and it actually dries extremely quickly. I mean, that's touch dry now. So that's the back scratcher, the Brendan Stemp design back scratcher. It actually does work really well. Great wood turning project. I reckon it's a good gift. I gave one of these to my daughter and she absolutely loves it. That's it for now. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Also like me on my Facebook page. That is U-Turn with Brendan Stemp. Safe turning. I'll see you another time.